I'm really pleased to welcome to the stage Anais Nebel. She's going to be talking about cultivating confidence. Anais is a culture leader and communications leader, an employee engagement strategist, keynote speaker, and host of the podcast Little Lessons from Big Hearts. She has experience across major brands such as Estee Lauder and The Body Shop, and she blends creativity, data, and well-being to drive internal culture, change, and employee empowerment. So welcome to the stage, Anais.
What an intro. Good thing we're talking about confidence because the bar is really high. So my name is Anais Nebel. I'm a confidence coach and also the founder of the Confidence Agency. And the Confidence Agency is a strategy consultancy and an experience agency helping brands turn confidence into their competitive advantage. So hopefully you're a little bit curious about that already. My background is a little bit eclectic. So I started in marketing and then went into consulting where I helped brands reposition themselves on the luxury market. And then kind of opportunity after opportunity, I went into culture, employee engagement, well-being. So I've been leading engagement campaigns across major brands like Estee Lauder companies or even The Body Shop. And then I've also been in this really privileged position where I've been coaching people one-on-one on confidence. So on one hand, I was hearing from boardrooms that disengagement was really high and it was hard to connect with people. And on the other, I was hearing firsthand from people what they were struggling with and why they weren't connecting with their job. So I kind of say that I'm the bridge between people and businesses. And there's two things I found over and over and over again throughout the businesses that I've worked with and throughout my work. The one thing is that too many people walk into work, into meetings, into life, not feeling like they're enough. That's the one thing holding you back, whether it is in one aspect of your life or in everything. And then the other bit is that the most successful, most engaged with campaigns and internal engagement campaigns connect people somehow with their sense of self. Confidence and driving confidence is a performance driver. Confidence actually isn't just personal, it's relational and it's cultural. And I've seen over and over how it's super powerful in employee engagement. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. But before I do, let me start with a little story. So in 2020, I joined The Body Shop, and that's the only time I'll mention the pandemic because we've heard so much about that. And as the company was trying to connect everybody virtually, and I joined 1 week before the whole company was shut down and went virtual, they were also going through a brand rejuvenation. So they wanted to bring back their activism spirit. The Body Shop had always been a brand that believed in being a force for good, which meant fighting for people, fighting for values, and fighting for the planet as well. One of their core values is self-esteem, and that's something they wanted to bring back, especially because we'd seen that the younger audiences started talking so much about self-development and confidence on TikTok and on social media platforms. But to back this up, they did research because they weren't going to launch it out of thin air. So they partnered with market research leader Ipsos to survey 22,000 people over 21 countries. And this one key finding came up that became the basis of the whole campaign, which is 1 in 2 people feel more self-doubt than self-love. Someone went, That means half of our population, and this has increased since then, doubt themselves or dislike themselves more than they see something positive in themselves or love themselves. Now, if I do a little bit of side note and we think about that in terms of our workforce, that means half of our workforce are doubting themselves daily. Think about untapped performance here. So The Body Shop was going to do a campaign raising awareness on self-esteem, and as it's a beauty brand, talk about how self-care is a really important part of self-esteem. I was working in leadership development, so I had nothing to do with marketing, but you may have noticed already that I like to think outside of the box, and I tend to have big ideas and share them. So I was like, if we want to tap into the younger audience, and if we want to make something that genuinely will make a difference, as lovely as it is to do some comms around self-esteem, that's not going to make the biggest difference. So we needed something that would resonate at an individual level because it's about self-esteem, that was relatable enough to collectivize people around it, and also something that would create buzz, that was innovative. So I got this bold idea. I was like, what if we created a song what if we could create a song that made people feel more confident the more they listened to it? A song that was written with everyone who wanted to within the business, and that would rewire negative beliefs because it was framed in a way through the lyrics and the melody to make you feel good. And that's exactly what we did many pitch meetings later. It had never been done before, and definitely not in the beauty industry. And we created a song called I Choose Self-Love, I Am Enough, that was written with 1,300 people all over the business, and that brought together themes around self-esteem. I mentioned how it impacts your brain positively. So it's based on the principles of neuroplasticity, and I'm sure Clive will talk about that later. But neuroplasticity is your brain's ability to change its thoughts patterns. So changing a belief from I'm not good enough to I'm enough, or I'm stupid to I'm smart. Basically what you believe, your brain can change over time. And music is such a powerful tool to tap into your subconscious. If you think of an earworm, for example, what you listen to in the shower in the morning, that will stay with you for the whole day. So it's really important to be particular about what you listen to. And then the lyrics were written with 1,300 people. So the way we did that is we sent out a survey. I'll just click here and then I'll go through the notes. We sent out a survey that people did answer with 3 questions, one of them being what's one thing you need to tell yourself more often to feel more confident. Can anybody guess what you think that one sentence is? It starts with I am. Yeah, that wasn't hard. So across all cultures, because we've got people from Spain, from the US, from Australia, across all cultures, all ages and all levels within the business, what people needed to tell themselves more often was I am enough, which really puts the 1 and 2 stat to life. And then I was picking out themes. We didn't have ChatGPT back then, so I was going through a spreadsheet, like picking out themes and creating lyrics from them. And the lovely thing is that it brought all parts of the business together, from retail to head office. And in a retail business, that's super important. In terms of impact, a song was added to all of the stores worldwide, to their store playlists. Got messages from store managers being quite emotional, hearing their voice. We asked people if they wanted to send in a voice note of them saying their affirmation in their native language, and we added that into the song. So it has a lot of different voices and languages into it. And then who's thinking now this costs like thousands and thousands of pounds? Is anybody thinking that? No? Okay, good. It cost under £650 because we used internal talent. And I have a background in music production, but that's a whole other story. And then because the Body Shop is an activist business, we made the song a charity song. So I gave away all of my rights, so it would be a 360 impact campaign, from people to customers to charity. Now, why did this work? In terms of stats, it multiplied engagement stats by 300. It's still organically growing online when the song is not being pushed. This wasn't really about a song. The song was the vehicle, and that vehicle worked for the Body Shop, but if we're honest, that's not going to work for a legal company. So this was actually more about confidence and connection around confidence. And that was my aha moment, that actually something around self-esteem and confidence fits within cultures. And since then, I became a coach. I coached 100 people, or over 100, like hundreds of people, on confidence and purpose. I worked with different businesses on weaving that into well-being or their employee engagement strategies. And I've seen over and over and over how confidence is a performance driver. And so now I'm going to go into the data and tell you why. So back to that stat, 1 and 2 people feel more self-doubt than self-love. It's a really simple stat, so I love using it. Our younger generations are the ones that struggle most with self-esteem. Lots of reasons behind this, whether it is social media, but so many different things. And in the boardrooms, we hear a lot about how it's difficult to retain and connect with the younger generations. There's also a stat that's like one third of Gen Z plan to leave their job in the next 2 years. So we're talking a lot about how do we retain them, and mental health and well-being. And then on the flip side, we have managers that struggle to connect with Gen Z, and 3 and 4 managers find it difficult. What if the issue is not disengagement? What if actually it is disconnection? How can we expect someone to connect with other people or the business, their work, if they're disconnected from themselves? How can we expect a Gen Z to connect with your company values if they don't even know their own values? And I think that's why confidence is so important, because it starts with self-awareness and then it goes into agency and making an impact. So I've developed a model on how we build confidence, and I do this through, so this kind of is the baseline for the confidence agency in terms of talks, in terms of experiences, where to build holistic confidence, it goes through 4 pillars. Self-esteem is just one pillar. And confidence isn't just a feeling, it's direction. The more you know about yourself, the more you're able to take a step forward and build proof in yourself. So self-esteem, this is kind of like inside-out confidence. Self-esteem is how worthy and enough you feel. Self-belief is, do you believe in your capabilities? Self-image is, how do you value your looks and how you present yourself? And then self-expression is, how do you communicate? All of these things will impact teamwork, will impact leadership, and how we lead our culture. Self-esteem. So self-esteem is how much we value ourselves beyond external validation and beyond our achievements, which is really hard. I was doing this workshop the other day around helping people find their compass. And there's an exercise I do called the I Know It list that was built by a sports psychologist. And what he found was that the more people wrote down what they knew about themselves, the more their performance increased because of self-awareness. And it's really interesting because I've done this before, and you see like 3 people writing away and asking for more Post-its, and then everybody else just staring at me, like blinking really loudly, just being like, can I please have some help? I don't know what to write. Because it's hard. We don't take the time to sit down and write down what we know about ourselves. Actually, test. I'm not going to ask anybody, but if I were to ask you to say 3 things you know about yourself that has nothing to do with your job, nothing to do with your achievements, who would be able to do that on the spot? A few, okay. But that shows how we're feeling within our business. Confident people, well done. There's a lot of studies behind this, and I'm so passionate about this, which you probably can see, hopefully can see. But self-esteem has been measured in the workplace. It improves mental health, well-being, and it's linked with higher productivity and resilience as well. And this is also a really interesting study around how self-talk impacts well-being at work. And they measured when people talked positively to themselves and positively reframed a situation, did that impact workplace well-being? And the answer is yes. Comparison impacts self-esteem. And maybe someone's thinking this relates more to women than men in general competence, and that's not true. So both men and women compare, but who we compare ourselves with is different. So men will compare themselves more than women with leaders, experts, managers, and colleagues. And then we have women who will compare themselves more with people on social media, models, and friends. So it's really interesting to see that difference. And then obviously social media is a massive factor here for our younger generations. Self-belief. This is a really important pillar because it turns self-esteem into action. It's great to know that you're enough and to know things about yourself, but then you need to do something about it. So the two go hand in hand. So it's the knowledge in your abilities, especially when times get tough, and we talk about resilience quite a bit. Gen Z self-belief at work is 14% lower than the older generations. Also really interesting studies around intelligence, where 62% of women in the UK don't believe their intelligence, and 58% of men lack confidence in the ability to do their job, which is really interesting. But it kind of relates again back to the 1 and 2. Self-image. So self-image is how confident we feel about our looks and how we're able to present that. There's stats around attractiveness, again, but all of that is just mental. It's just knowing who you are and things that make you more confident that will help you kind of increase your self-image. There's something called enclothed cognition, which is your brain will associate a skill or a power to certain items of clothing. Northwestern University did a study where they put a group of people together and they made them answer scientific questions. And then they put the same group of people together, made them answer the same questions, but this time with lab coats. And the accuracy rate of the responses increased when they had the lab coats. That's because subconsciously we associate lab coats with expertise, with science, and that just has an impact on our brain. blazers also are kind of like a power move. So if you wear a blazer in a meeting, you'll feel more confident presenting. Style and color also impact the way that we perform. There was a study done on negotiation and cool colors like green and blue, and they found that when the person negotiating was wearing green, the outcome was more favorable, or the time it took to come to the answer and the other person kind of saying no took more time. So super, super interesting, and all of these are different tools that we can use to build our confidence. And then we have self-expression. So self-expression is about feeling safe to express ourselves. Authenticity is something we've heard a lot about recently. At work, EY did a study, and they found that being true to yourself, I quote, and authenticity are the two most important values to them. On the flip side, we have our baby boomers, kind of other end of the spectrum, that value loyalty to the business and financial stability most. So it's almost like we've gone from loyalty to the business to loyalty to ourselves, but workplaces haven't necessarily caught up yet. Authentic self-expression, whether that is through creativity, sharing your ideas, boost mental well-being, and again, if we think of workplace culture, of teamwork, this all impacts it. And then community. You need to be able to express yourself to find people to connect with. And loneliness is a really big thing right now in the world, but also in terms of workplace culture. 73% of Gen Z said they feel lonely always or sometimes. And in the UK, 80% of adults experience some type of loneliness. So it's something people feel, but I think, again, it's back to disconnection from themselves, from others, and from the brand or the work that they're working with. How much time do I have left? 5. Okay, I've done this speedier than I thought. I was going to do a little exercise here. Just who is resonating with everything I'm saying now in terms of feeling enough? Okay. We'll do a little test by show of hands, and then if you feel brave enough to raise, but I won't ask you to share anything. Can you please raise your hand if you have ever held back an idea because you weren't sure it was going to land? Okay, everyone. Can you keep it up? Can you lower it? Wait, how do I do this? Keep it up if you've ever felt not enough compared to your colleagues. Okay. Keep it up if you've ever worried about how you looked when you presented something in a meeting. Okay. And keep it up if you ever felt like you couldn't express your true self, whether it was with colleagues or at work. Yeah, that's a lot of people. So if we're feeling this and we're leading culture, imagine how people are feeling in your business. It's something that's so important. So I want to leave you with this. Hopefully you see the benefit of confidence. It's something I'm so passionate about if you want to talk about it afterwards. I know lots of stats, lots of studies, but in a world full of noise, disconnection, and self-doubt, confidence isn't a buzzword. And I think we tend to think that because it's mentioned a lot on social media. It's something Gen Z are talking a lot about. It's actually a strategy. And if we think of retention, equipping the leaders of tomorrow and creating amazing workplaces people want to stay in and work for, confidence and building that through different pillars like I talked about is super important. And it's not another training session I think we need. We need something immersive and experiential, hence why I'm building everything I'm building, because I'm so passionate about it. And I've seen it work over and over, and I just want to, help as many people as possible because I think that's what we all need. We don't feel enough. Thank you.